Good afternoon to you. Mark Sott with HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Monday, the 20th of March. Doesn't feel like it outside, that's for sure. 2023, it's the first day of spring. The equinox is here, but here in Wilmington, North Carolina, it is miserable outside, at least from my standards. It's like in the upper 40s, kind of drizzly. It's just nasty, but hey, it's the first day of spring. We got to talk about this. El Nino is coming on. I'm going to show you some very interesting things, including the very warm tropical and eastern Atlantic. The AMO looks like it's back as well. Wow, an interesting time coming up for a lot of reasons regarding the weather. All right, let's get on with it. Show you what we got. We're going to start off first with a little bit of education as to the ENSO regions, all this area right through here. ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation Phenomenon. Memorize this, all right? There'll be a quiz later. This is your 1-2 region, right off the coast of South America, including the Galapagos Islands. Then your Nino 3 area is this red. Nino 4 is this orange. You sort of combine the two and blend them up a little bit like a Venn diagram, and that's your 3.4 region. Why does this matter? The different warmth in the different regions has different outcomes in terms of impacts. Generally, an El Nino that's more in the Central Pacific has less of an impact on the Atlantic Basin and Caribbean over here than does a basin-wide El Nino or one that is situated mostly in the Eastern Pacific. The reason why, I will get to in just a moment. First of all, let's take a look at the SOI. Now, I talk about this a lot. It is a great literal barometer because that's what it's doing. The SOI is a measurement of pressure. And for the first time in a long time, look at that. The 30-day average, what a drop-off. I mean, I'm telling you, we went from some pretty high numbers into the positives. Now we are negative. It's only 0.34 below zero. Remember, this is just an index. It's just like the stock market. It's not really a measurement of anything. It's just a number that you get through some math when you take the difference between the pressure in Tahiti and in Darwin down in the southwestern tropical Pacific. But what we get is this index that we can keep up with, and when it's strongly positive, you're typically in La Nina, and when it's negative and strongly and consistently negative, you are typically in El Nino. So the 30-day, now finally negative, the 90-day still strongly positive, and we can see our 30-day graph here in the red, the 90-day slowly going down as well. What this means, we are definitely gradually shifting towards an El Nino event, the abnormal warming of the tropical equatorial Pacific region, and I can show you that right here. There it is. It's starting to come into fruition. The eastern Pacific warming up, especially off the west coast of South America out towards the Galapagos, and then the central Pacific, the Nino 3-4 area, still holding on to some cooler anomalies. It's going to take some time and more westerly wind action to come through here. It's all very complicated, but the bottom line, when the SOI is negative, you typically get more of these westerly wind bursts that come across. Sometimes they're enhanced by the MJO, yes, but this is the pattern where we look for more westerly winds. It helps to build this warm water pool up in the eastern Pacific, and you get an El Nino. But at the same time, I want to draw your attention to the Atlantic Basin. Look at this classic AMO look overall. No cold water in the northeast Atlantic relative to average, no cold water down in the deep tropics. In fact, it's nice and warm all through this area, and then the subtropics up here are cool, right where they should be to cooler. So you have cool over warm instead of like last year where everything was warm and you had this ridiculous area. Let me draw it in with red. Remember, all this was like really warm up here last hurricane season, kind of distorting everything. We don't have that this year. This is more of your classic positive AMO, or Atlantic Multidecadal Oscillation. Just a fancy way of saying, hey, look at this. The Atlantic Basin, where we look for tropical activity to flourish from, those signals are strong as of now. But we do have this El Nino trying to come on to counter that. So what's going to happen in the end? Well, nobody knows for sure. I still think we do have a robust hurricane season coming up, especially the front part of it, getting into about mid to late August. After that, we're going to have to just wait and see. Does this El Nino grow and expand basin-wide and become very dominant and strong? And do we start to cool down the deep tropics out here? If that happens, then the Atlantic hurricane season numbers, the numbers could be lower than we have seen in quite some time. But last year's numbers were lower than we've seen in quite some time, and we still had devastating Fiona and very devastating Ian, amongst others, right? So the numbers are interesting, they're helpful, but they don't tell the full story. Just always remember that. So the El Nino is starting to set up. This will have implications on other aspects of the climate over the next year or so. Weather, climate, just depends on how you look at it. The weather patterns and the overall climate signals going forward, because this is going to act like a big old radiator through here, warming up and helping to spike the global temperatures, and that'll lead to some interesting things as well. But as far as our discussions go for the Atlantic hurricane season, we're going to have to just keep watching it. Now, the CFS is still pretty aggressive here on some of its runs, some of these getting really high, but that's why we have the ensemble mean going right through here, and that generally shows a steady progression to a decent El Nino event by the middle of hurricane season, which is about right here. It's a little bit more than 1 degree Celsius above average in the 3.4 area, which is right through here. Where does that translate on this map? Generally speaking, this area right through here should be about like what we see these temperatures later in the summer. We'll have to see. That's what the CFS is forecasting. There's lots of other models, and we have some time until we get there. Now, this is interesting. This is over at Dr. Michael Ventress's, Ventress with an apostrophe S, his site, and these are what we call HalfMolar diagrams. Let me pull up the big one that I've got here for you. Now, this is hard to explain, so kind of bear with me. If you already know how to read one of these, you can skip ahead. So we're looking at time over here. Well, let's use a color that pops out better, shall we? Let's use purple. Maybe that'll pop better. So this is time. This is the past back here, and this is the future down here. So put future here. And so we're going from the past to the future. This is a forecast, and this is from the GFS. And what are we looking at? Well, the colors are what's important. The blues indicate trade winds that are stronger, and in this case, zonal wind anomalies, as it's called, at about the 5,000 foot level in the area from 5 south of the equator, 5 degrees south, to 5 degrees north. So a little zone right across the tropics there where the trade winds blow. Blues mean you're blowing stronger than normal. And you can see the extremes over here on the left side. You can get some really strong trades. Whereas the reds, oranges, yellows, reds, whatever, indicate anomalous westerly winds. So the trades not only stop, but the winds become westerly. And when that happens across the deep tropics, weird things go on with water temperatures. And so what we look at is, again, this is the past. We can see strong trades in here. When? They were from February 23rd through the 28th, roughly. This is an area of stronger westerly wind anomalies. So just to get you oriented here, this right here is a very strong westerly wind burst. You can look down at the scale. The winds were really screaming where? Across the area of the deep tropics from 5 south of the equator to 5 north in those longitudinal areas down here. Does that make sense at all? So let's go over to this map over here real quick. I'm going to try to explain this, and then every time you look at this, you'll say, oh, I understand now. So we're talking about roughly this area right through here, roughly 5 north to 5 south, and then your longitude area is 90 west, goes over to 60. I mean, that covers the whole globe in Mercator style. That's what this map is. But this is the region that we're talking about. And going back and looking at the actual HalfMolar diagram, back in the early part of March, right here, I'm going to leave that box up, through just recently, across the area of the equator, north and south of it by 5 degrees, and from about 130, 120 west longitude towards South America, right through here, we had strong westerly winds right through here. See that? And look what happened. It warmed up. So that's why these HalfMolar diagrams are important. That is a westerly wind burst right there. These are stronger trades through here. Stronger, right? Look at the Atlantic. Now, you understand your longitude. There's 60 west longitude, so that's just about the islands. And this is areas east of there towards Africa. Look what happened when, right around mid-March until recently, and then into the future, this is all forecast down here, we had a relaxation of the trades and even some westerly wind anomalies in the Atlantic. And what happened? Go back to the map real quick. It warmed all through here. All right, mainly down to the south. But yes, we have slowed the trades in the Atlantic and the Pacific, and both have responded with warmth. Now, this is the forecast going forward. Very interesting. Look at all the blue showing up in here. Remember what I told you? These are stronger trades over on the left side. And where is this? This is from the eastern Pacific all the way out to the date line. So, the GFS is predicting as we end March, we will see a return to stronger trade winds. That is very interesting, isn't it? This might be a one-off. And if it is, and the Atlantic still holds on to this, it's going to be a very busy hurricane season. That's a logical statement to make. And we don't know. Do we get another one of these westerly wind bursts? There's certainly nothing showing up right now. But as we get through March and April, the rest of March into April and May, yes, there could be. There could be. But if there isn't, and we get more of these blues and stronger trades coming back, sort of thwarting and holding up that El Nino progression, and the Atlantic holds on to that reduction of trades, it's going to be an interesting time coming up. So we're going to have to watch this very closely. That's how you look at a HalfMolar diagram, the wind anomalies at 5,000 feet down in the tropics. I'll be watching this. We'll look at it next week for sure. All right? I hope you understood all that. Okay, actual sea surface temperatures. I know a lot of people are on spring break right now, mostly probably in South Florida or Cozumel or something like that. But yes, the Gulf of Mexico does continue to warm up. Look, it's always going to be warm enough for hurricanes and very intense hurricanes. It's just fun to kind of track and see how quickly it's warming up, where the 80-degree line is, etc. And that being said, it's roughly right through here. There's your 26 Celsius or about 80 degrees. Yep, if you go down to the Bay of Campeche, nice and warm down there. Look, there's 27 Celsius and even a 28 in that little bay down there. And of course, the Caribbean, nice and warm as well. This is progressing. It's always warmer than average, it seems, in these last 10 years or so. And as I said, it'll always be warm enough to sustain very powerful hurricanes should they try to get going. In the Atlantic, though, this is different. You know, it's always interesting to see this gradient right here, very sharp gradient. Warm water near the Gulf Stream, colder shelf water, very cold, relatively speaking, up against the northeast, where I just was in Massachusetts. I was in Scituate and Marshfield, and then I went over to the Berkshires for the snow that we had up there. But look how warm it is up here relative to average. The anomalies are certainly very warm in the northwest Atlantic, even if the actual temperatures up here are 6 and 7 degrees Celsius. That's still too cold, but they're warmer. As cold as they are, they're still warmer than average. Just something to monitor. I don't know, just something I like to look at. All right, let's leave the tropics for a little bit. Talk about lower 48 weather. Yes, the El Nino, if it does come on, like it looks like it more than likely will, it will have global weather and short-term climate impacts. More moisture, more storms doing different things. Jet streams will change. It's very complicated and more than I want to get into now. But maybe what we are seeing in California with these atmospheric rivers coming one after the other is a sign of what's going to be coming as the El Nino comes on and matures. Just something to think about as we go forward. But for the week ahead, set this up for you. Stormy once again out west, yes, as another atmospheric river and overall big impulse of energy comes into California, focused towards the Bay Area and points south. We'll look at that on the GFS in just a moment. Frost and freeze for the southeast. Yuck. I'm done. I'm good. I've seen enough snow this winter. I'm ready for spring and the convective season. Bring it on, please. All right, so looking at the GFS, this is the, I like to call this the surface map. I love how Dr. Cowan, who, by the way, let me bring me on real quick. He just got married, so big congratulations to him and his bride. They got married up in Alaska. Certainly look him up on Twitter and you can see all about it. But one of the wonderful things he has done for us, of course, is provide tropical tidbits and a very easy way to show you the weather. So with that being said, let me show you the weather. This is what it looks like over the next several days. Look out west to California. There's that low that comes in. More rain, more high elevation snow. This is ridiculous. It really is. Problematic. Flooding. I mean, people are getting exhausted of it. Power outages, trees down, mudslides, rock slides, you name it. In the end, it'll be a good thing. Yes, just remember that. Full reservoirs, lots of snowpack, hopefully less fire danger for the next year or two, hopefully. And then, and this is really important, look how it gets some of this moisture into the Rockies. That's what you need to help feed the Colorado River Basin, through here. All right, so we need more in the Rockies. The Sierra, the Great Basin, the Wasatch. That really doesn't do much for the Colorado River Basin. Can't even say it. Lake Mead, Lake Powell, those two lakes, yes, they get fed mostly from Colorado River moisture that comes from the Rockies. All right? All right. Moving on ahead. Trying to tell you too much. We're out at about 4 days. Yes, there will be a severe weather threat for our friends here in parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Poor Mark, I'm struggling. And I got a cold, too. Picked up some kind of a little head cold when I was up in Massachusetts. It's just an annoyance more than anything. But we do have severe weather coming in, and that's where that warm Gulf helps to feed that. Look, that's perfect. The textbook example. High pressure in the southwest Atlantic, return flow coming out of the south there. Follow the isobars. That's your wind flow. Low-level moisture from an anomalously warm Gulf of Mexico, warmer than it should be. More energy, more moisture, more heat. The dynamics come in from the jet stream. That's the recipe for severe weather, and we're going to look at that separately in just a moment from the Storm Prediction Center website. All right, that's day 4. By day 5, the storminess moves east. Severe weather for Dixie again. Yep. And then winter trying to hold on, maybe some heavy snow for parts of the Great Lakes region as we get into the weekend and beyond. So April looks to start off, I'll just fast forward this out to April. Still stormy. Look at that. Very stormy. The El Nino coming on is going to do some very interesting things as we move ahead. Real quick, regarding our system out west, this is important. More rain, more moisture. Again, I know you need it in the long term, but this is too much. Definitely. Look at this. Just insane amounts of snow in the Sierra. Avalanche problems, roads closed. Ski resorts, they got too much snow. The east didn't have enough. Resorts closed early. Out west, there's so much in some of these areas that the snow is all the way up to the ski lifts. It's just ridiculous. But that's the way it goes. So, yeah, this is important. You folks out there in the west, hang in there. I mean, you know what happens. It dries out, it greens, and then it dries out and the green turns to brown, and then you get fire problems eventually. It's just a never-ending cycle. All right, real quick, a look at the Storm Prediction Center forecasts here. Just a little area of thunderstorms in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. Very generalized. Same thing for parts of the Intermountain West. Nothing too severe at all. Just random storms. A little bit of convective activity. That's all that means. Same thing for tomorrow. And then finally, later on into Wednesday, generally those same areas. But then, as we get to the day 4 through 8, we really start to set things up here. This is day 4, Texas, Oklahoma. Day 5, that shifts into the southeast Dixie area, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Alabama, parts of Arkansas. But yeah, day 4, day 5, important weather days coming up if you are in the south, deep south, Texas there, Oklahoma. Be ready. Severe weather season will be coming on stronger and more potent. I will be shifting. I don't think I'm going to cover any more snow unless we get a crazy, huge storm somewhere. And so over the next few weeks, I will be shifting my emphasis as we get closer to hurricane season. We do testing, we test equipment and all kinds of stuff, and we might as well use our equipment, our talent, and our funding to cover severe weather. And that's what I will be doing. Was thinking about heading out there this week, but I got to be honest, even with the adequate funding that I've got, the plane tickets right now are bordering $1,000 just to fly to Dallas because it's spring break. and they're taking advantage of people. I was furious about that. I was like, Plus, it's still March, and I want to wait until we get more of that April-May pattern before I go out into the plains. So that's coming. We'll talk about that more later. We will have severe weather coverage in the plains with our unique brand of doing things with multiple cameras, and even taking the weather balloon out there to do some upper atmospheric observations with cameras and sensors like we try to do in hurricanes. We're going to do that in Tornado Alley this year as well. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up as El Nino comes in and does whatever it's going to do. Pretty sure it's going to happen. The strength of it and what happens with the Atlantic, though, just to kind of wrap things up here, that is yet to be determined. We don't know for sure. But as we get into April, we will start to get forecasts. Dr. Phil Klotzbach, Colorado State University, that will be first. Lots of private organizations, too, will issue theirs. And we'll get some glimpses as to what people think the upcoming hurricane season will be like. I just think unless the Atlantic really cools off, we still have the chance to have a pretty big impact season. And as they say, I know we keep saying this, it's kind of the statement, the motto, it only takes one, and if it happens where you live, and that could just be a tropical storm, it doesn't take a big old hurricane to ruin your life, your property, and cause a lot of headache. We don't know. We don't know where that's going to happen. So that's why we have to pay attention to this, and that's what I'm here for. All right? As always, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you giving me part of your day. Went over a lot today, by the way, and I guess that's good, trying to educate you on what I look at from week to week. Speaking of weeks, have a good rest of your week. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack. I'll be back with you next Monday.